last year, Democrats in this body passed a party-line spending bill, and they spent us into record-high inflation. Ever since then, this is nothing but bad news for the working families of this country. We have seen the worst inflation in 40 years. Prices have gone up faster than wages, month after month after month, 15 months in a row now. Prices up faster than wages. Now, Democrats' inflation has caused a recession. As a result, working families are finding it much harder to get by. They can't keep up. The average family can afford less today than they could the day that Joe Biden took office. Much less. The savings rate hasn't been this low since the Great Recession. People are having to spend their savings. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. But the worst gut punch is about to happen right now, making all the pain the Americans have suffered now extend for a longer period of time. Democrats passed this bill that's on the floor today. This inflation crisis is going to get worse. For weeks there have been rumors that Democrats were working hidden behind closed doors on another reckless tax and spending bill. The American people knew it would be bad, and the bill that we're looking at now is worse than expected. Of course, the Democrats wrote it in secret. They didn't want the American people to know what was inside it. Now here we are, late on a Saturday afternoon. The Democrats are trying to cram it through before people even get to read it. Members of my party were wanting to read it earlier today. It wasn't even available, likely because it wasn't even written yet. I understand it's over 700 pages long. An earlier version I saw 725 pages with a cost of over $1 billion a page. Democrats call it their bill that they intend to try to use to reduce inflation. But the more likelihood is that it will lead to double-digit inflation. Haven't seen that since Jimmy Carter was in the White House. The Wharton School of Business does a budget model. It says that this bill, for everything that they've read so far, will actually increase inflation for the next 2 years. It's bad enough for the American people today. They can't put up with it for another 2 years. Now, I'm told that the Wharton analysis is usually the economic analysis that the senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, uses. Well, I hope that Senator Manchin and every member of this body pay attention to that Wharton study. A chorus of economists is saying the exact same thing as the experts are telling us from Wharton. There's a nonpartisan group called the Tax Foundation, and it says, quote, this bill may actually worsen inflation. Worsen inflation. That's why I say we're looking at the possibility of double-digit inflation. It's 9.1% now. Democrats' favorite economist, Mark Zandi, says that the bill would almost have no effect on inflation. So how's it going to lower inflation if it has no effect on inflation? And that from a favorite of the Democrats. The Congressional Budget Office says the bill would have a negligible effect on inflation. Clearly, there is broad agreement among experts that the bill will not lower inflation. Democrats were warned the last time, March of 2021. Democrats are being warned again this time, and they are ignoring the warnings. But it doesn't take an economist to tell you that this bill would be a disaster for working families. The bill's going to mean more taxes, more spending, higher prices, right in the middle of a combination of an inflation time and a time of recession. The burdens of this bill are going to be borne by the working families of this country. Now, this bill is going to hit working families from all sides. First, let's take a look at the taxes. Tax revenues are already at record highs in this country. Not enough for the Democrats, but record all-time highs of tax revenue. Democrats want more, a lot more. The Democrats' inflation bill would increase taxes by nearly $500 billion. Now, this includes a blatant violation of Joe Biden's campaign promise when he said he wouldn't raise taxes on middle-class families. The Joint Tax Committee says that this bill will raise taxes on the very people that Joe Biden said he wasn't going to come after. Joint Tax Committee actually said the bill will raise taxes on people at nearly every level of income. It will affect you, every one of you, all across this country. Now, Democrats, of course, want to raise taxes on American energy. It's been their claim since the day one when Joe Biden basically put a target on the back of American energy and pulled the trigger. And amazingly, they want to do it in the middle of an energy crisis. Remember, this is the energy crisis that the Democrats have created. When Joe Biden declared war on American energy, American families started paying the price and have been paying the price ever since then. The bill does nothing to open up exploration for energy and American oil on American properties on federal lands. No, it includes a new tax on American oil and gas production. This tax alone will raise the cost of energy for half of the households in America. Now, this is at a time when 1/3 of the inflation in this country is driven by the cost of energy. And when you take a look at the cost of food, energy is a component of that. Growing food, getting food to market, all of those things are related to energy. That tax alone is going to shrink the economy and cost jobs. There's also a new tax on imported oil. And Joe Biden's energy policy has been basically, please send us some oil. There was his policy last year when he went to Glasgow, and he actually asked Vladimir Putin to send us more oil from Russia, as Russia was planning to invade Ukraine. He's trying to cut a deal with Iran to get Iranian oil. Venezuela, he's sent emissaries to Venezuela asking for oil. And he went hat in hand last month to Saudi Arabia saying, please send us more oil. And then the Democrats put in their bill an excise tax on that oil that the president is begging to have sent to America, and then to add insult to injury, they index the tax to inflation. High inflation begetting more inflation. Means the more inflation the Democrats cause, the higher the prices go up. More taxes, more inflation. This is a vicious cycle of Democrat taxes and Democrat inflation. As a result, the pain at the pump is going to get worse. Yet the worst punishment of all is for American coal production. Now, I'm proud to say Wyoming has been America's #1 producer of coal for decades. Coal is still the most affordable, reliable energy known to man. It's used all over the world. Yet in this bill, the Democrats want to raise taxes on coal companies by up to 16% of their income. Well, I'm from a coal state. Senator Manchin's from a coal state. He and I work together on the Energy Committee. He's the chair. I'm the ranking member. Here's what the West Virginia Coal Association has said about what's in this bill that we're going to be voting on starting tonight. Joe Manchin's home state coal association said, why support anything Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, or John Kerry want for coal? They go on to say it is incomprehensible why any coal miner, would support the Manchin-Schumer legislation. This is going to punish West Virginia directly, and it's going to punish the hardworking people of Wyoming. It's also going to punish their customers who rely on affordable energy. These taxes are clearly going to get passed on to the consumer. In other words, higher prices, more inflation, economics 101. The Democrats also want to raise taxes on savings and investment at a time when seniors are hurting. Seniors are already watching their savings go down and their taxes go up. Inflation is so bad that there are reports that seniors are moving in together because they can't afford to pay the rent. Yet Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden want to raid their 401ks. This bill also contains a hidden tax increase. That's because the bill would nearly double the size of the IRS. Now, Democrats think that giving the IRS $80 billion additional to hire additional auditors. Tens of thousands, over 80,000 more auditors of the IRS, an army of auditors that they're going to be able to squeeze another $200 billion out of American taxpayers. You're not talking about a couple of rich people here. 86,000 auditors aren't needed to go after a couple of billionaires. They're going after mainstream America. They're going after families, farmers, after small businesses. The IRS is already one of the most powerful and unaccountable bureaucracies in the federal government. But the Democrats say, not enough, we want to put you on steroids so you can squeeze more money out of families of this country. The Joint Tax Committee says almost all of the money raised by supersizing the IRS would come from those making less than $200,000 a year. That's the Joint Tax Committee. So the billionaires in San Francisco and Manhattan who run the Democrat Party, they're going to be just fine. It's working families who always foot the bill for liberal policies. So what are Democrats going to do with $500 billion in new taxes? Well, they want to do what they do best, give taxpayer dollars to their closest friends and their biggest political contributors. That includes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars for the big fans of the Green New Deal. The bill puts American taxpayers on the hook for more than $315 billion in green energy loan guarantees. This would be billions and billions for projects like Solyndra that went bankrupt when President Obama was in the office and Joe Biden was vice president. You would have thought Joe Biden had learned those lessons from the horror stories of the money being lost, the taxpayer dollars wasted in projects that went bankrupt one after another after another. The bill would give billions and billions for rich people to buy electric vehicles. Unlike other vehicles, electric vehicles, they pay no gas tax, which is how, of course, in this country that we pay for the roads and the bridges and the highways. Democrats want to cut them a big check as well. This is welfare for the wealthy. The bill also includes supersized Obamacare subsidies for people making well over $100,000 a year. It's also welfare for the wealthy. Supersized subsidies on steroids. Now, the subsidies were put in place at the beginning of the pandemic. They were supposed to be temporary. Yet Democrats seem to want them to continue forever. If Democrats extend these subsidies permanently, this bill would not actually help at all with the deficit. It would clearly add to the national debt. In other words, Democrats are using the same sleight-of-hand accounting gimmicks that they tried last year. 9 months ago, when Democrats tried things like this in their Build Back Better plan that failed, even Senator Manchin admitted that it was, quote, smoke and mirrors, a shell game, and budget gimmicks. Democrats are back to their old tricks right now. Here we are 9 months later. The difference is inflation is a lot higher. The pain people have gone through is felt more deeply. Not a single Republican is going to vote for this monstrosity. No Democrat should either. Joe Biden's economy is already the worst economy that most Americans have ever experienced in their lifetime. Democrats pass this bill, it's going to get worse. And so I urge my colleagues, don't inflict this kind of pain on the American people in the middle of a recession. The American people are hurting enough.